Yeah. So I'm just recording. I'm recording.
You're recording
So
now?
right now.
Okay.
Just you're online, so.
So don't say anything that I don't want to be recorded. Alright. You gonna get your pajamas out? Yes.
Excuse-moi. Commencer à arriver.
Yes.
Just 2 minutes. It's done at 6:30. So already are waiting since 6:30.
Are you actually well, we came earlier and left for a snack. Hello? Actually, you can sit there, but just move it a little bit because we're recording.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Super. Great. I mean,
Roland.
Arno?
Roland.
Oh no,
Renault.
that's a really hard one for me.
Sorry. Sorry.
Renault.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Anybody have any tricks for learning the French R? So hard.
Learn Danish, then you're gonna nail it.
Huh?
Learn Danish, then you nail that.
Really?
Yeah, it's so easy learning Danish.
Huh. Maybe not. You sound unconvincing and like a very good liar. With a smile, I like it. So, before we get really started, I'll just chat a bit. I am delighted to be here in Paris. The last time I was here on BGI business was about 14 years ago, and Sue Brown and I did I helped her do a pediatric module for the ICPA at EFEC. And apparently it was a big deal that we were at EFEC, but not so much as it would be now, because it sounds like things have changed pretty dramatically. So anytime that we've had any contact with students coming from EFEC, their eyes just light up, like, you have to come to Paris. So Sebastian was so diligent about getting this organized, and thank you very much for organizing everything. It's really, without him, there would not be this event. So, and also apparently this was not a great weekend in general for the chiropractic community at large in France. So we may be coming back to do another one. So if you love what you hear tonight and everything, please, we'll have a date by the end of the weekend, so you can get that on your calendars. I love Paris. For me, it's such a treat to be here. And I've been traveling quite a lot in the last couple of years, teaching and other stuff. And I have a kind of a funny practice now. I used to practice in Manhattan, and I saw mostly pregnant women and babies. And in a very short time, I did a good job at becoming the chiropractor that people would refer their pregnant people to. So whether doulas or midwives or obstetricians, and it was a great practice. And I was working a lot, and our daughter was born, and my husband was working about 80 hours a week. And we decided that we didn't so much love having a babysitter raise our kid. And so we moved to an island south of Sicily, south of the northern tip of Tunisia, that no one has ever heard of. So raise your hand if you've ever heard of this place. It's called Andalusia. No, good for you. So we moved to Pampelilla thinking that it would be a 1-year thing, that we would just sort of get a restart and see where our priorities were and give our kid the chance to learn a second language and have a different experience and see if she liked having us around all the time. and that was 5 years ago. So we constantly talk about coming back to the real world. And when we sort of make any motion to do so, something horrible happens in the world, and we sort of reassess and feel like where we are right now is there's a lot of great things about it, despite the fact that it drives me crazy. And so a great example of that was yesterday being in Palermo, and I did it could have been anywhere, but I was in Palermo, which is a crazy making place. And I got a text message saying, "Your flight has been canceled. We're sorry." And I was like, "That's not okay," because I have people that get there. And but so very nice. And I feel like France tried to keep me out, but it didn't. So that's good. But yeah. I don't want to get started in the material until we have everybody here. So I'm just chit-chatting. Where do you practice? Oh no.
In France, in Burgundy.
In Burgundy?
Yeah.
Nice, lovely. Who are my other chiropractors? Sire, where do you practice?
I practice in Copenhagen.
Ah, fantastic. And are you allowed to have, so here's what I hear about Denmark.
Yep.
Pretty mechanistic
Yes.
and, yeah, like minor surgery and stuff. Am I making that up?
The last part, I think you are making up, but there are programs for having chiropractors work in hospitals.
Uh-huh.
And so they go through a whole education where they also are able to diagnose rather like medical diagnoses and prescribe certain medications and things like that, but on a limited basis.
Right.
They're not going in and doing surgery.
And did you study in Denmark?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah. But it's highly, highly mechanistic, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of a freak in that kind of ballgame. But
And
I'm an
how did that
accepted,
happen?
I'm an accepted freak,
Yeah.
so it's fine.
Well, we're going to give you some really good fodder because
Yeah.
you can have great conversations with
It's
people.
very
after
cool.
it. Yes. And how did you become a freak? Or, I mean, all chiropractors are freaks, but how did you become
Yeah,
a
we're
freak of
all a
freaks?
weird bunch. My background is I was born and raised in Hawaii, in a highly spiritual community,
Uh-huh.
and I've kind of brought that with me throughout my life. And so my first meeting with chiropractic was more a spiritual experience than it was a mechanical experience.
And was it in Hawaii?
That was in Hawaii. And so that's kind of resonated with me all the way through. And along the way, I kind of forgot all about that and did the mechanistic thing and found it didn't work for me, and figured out that I can do things with my hands and feel things that are not mechanical, and started exploring that and have kind of prioritized what that tells me in terms of what to adjust. So I've been kind of trying, I've heard about BGI, and I think I've been kind of doing BGI at some level, but I don't have the systematic approach or anything like that. So I'm kind of hoping to structure
We'll fix it.
my experience. Thank you.
I'm not a fixer, but that's something
Yeah,
we will
exactly.
do.
Exactly.
Great. How are we doing, Sebastian? Can we start?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You're nice.
Great. So much? Okay, so welcome to BGI Paris. This is where it was going to say, thank you with your logo. This is me. So this is my island, and you're all welcome to come visit. It's not easy to get to, like very many great places in the world, but the Mediterranean Sea is amazing. It's totally unpolluted. There's absolutely no industry, which means there's no jobs. But it's an incredibly agricultural island still, and there's been the influence of the Arabs, the French, the Phoenicians. It's a very interesting cultural mishmash. And I'm the only chiropractor there. I would love to have more people. My practice has shifted from being a very wellness-based practice, serving a tremendous amount of women and kids and pregnancies and families, to really having to take a step back in terms of a wellness practice, because the people that I serve, other than in the summer months, who are all coming from fairly affluent backgrounds, they're farmers and they are in pain from picking grapes or capers. And so it's been very interesting because I have to stay true to my philosophy and also meet people where they are. So that's something that we talk a bit about in BGI2, is to how to blend the philosophy and also really serve people where they are. It's been a really interesting journey. So you are all welcome to come. My husband is an incredible chef. I know that may not mean as much for somebody who lives in Paris, but we're a good gig to come visit. So this quote you have all, I'm sure, heard a million times, and so I'm not giving you anything new, but this is how we like to start off bgi1, because it brings us back to our roots. So it is such a powerful and beautiful quotation, and I will read it, and it is often hard for me to get through without getting emotional, because what we do is so incredible. So BJ said, "I am a chiropractor working with the sciences of the universe by turning on the life in man through the art of adjustment. I do not prescribe, treat, or diagnose conditions. I use only my hands. I work with that mysterious something which created my body from 2 cells. At a time prescribed eons ago, I was set in this body to experience. That cosmic power which created me, which also moves the seas, rotates the earth, directs the heavens, gives life, takes it away, is everything. And that power which set the universe in motion and created me did not abandon me when I became free of the security of my earthly mother's womb. It is still with me and protects me as it moves all forms towards their final predestined goal. It is not mine to educatedly ask why or where, but to innately live and live to help my fellow creatures. And with this chiropractic adjustment, I use all the power and energies moving the universe to allow my fellow creatures the chance to live free of disease. I wish nothing in return, only the chance to give. I give with the only thing I have, love. And I love all by removing that which interferes with 100% life. I do not look for others for direction. I look within. I am a perfect expression of God living 24 hours each day for others. I am a principled chiropractor." If you are in this room right now, it is not a coincidence. And the people that BGI attracts, whether it's for our lecture or for our seminars, tend to be people who are very driven and grounded in chiropractic principles. So it is always my honor to meet fellow chiropractors around the world. No matter how you apply your mastery and your skill, what we have to offer you can be added into what you already do. And that's something I also love about this work, is that it's not a technique. It's not one of those things where you have to go home and, all right, we're changing everything. We're throwing away everything I've ever done. I've done a seminar. And the people in your practice go, oh my God, another one. And because basically what we're gonna do this weekend, you can incorporate whatever it is that you do and love with this. If you're not loving what you do, you can take all of it and have it be an entire standalone approach. But if there's parts of your practice that aren't necessarily integrating or resonating with where you are in your practice right now, or things that you just don't love doing, we're going to give you enough to go home with to fill that space, and to fill it with an approach that matches your personality, your tone, how you relate with people. It is not a technique. It is not a push here, push there, push there. It is applied differently by every single one in the world who practices BGI. And that's another thing that I love about it, is just it's so much about the art of whoever's applying and practicing it. Biogeometric integration, an integrative approach to the philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic, building bridges between osseous, tonal, and postural models. So in my experience in school and outside of school and teaching, we tend to kind of have 2 camps in the chiropractic world. We have our structural osseous adjusters, our Gonstead dudes. Please laugh with me. I try to make fun, not of people, but just to make it fun. And then we have our airy fairies, who barely touch. And it is very rare that there is a marriage of the two. Well, they may actually get married to two people, but in practice, they're totally different. And Sue Brown, the incredible chiropractor who founded this work, had two people in her life that were so important to her. And her uncle was a Rackham and Crackham master. And her sister sort of was gravitating towards every esoteric light touch technique that there was. And so Sue would say, sometimes I feel like I want that sort of intense approach that my uncle delivers, but beautifully and with love. He doesn't force anything. It's very powerful. And there's other times where my body, I feel like I couldn't really handle that. And so then I gravitate towards the softer stuff. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could know what the person who we're serving that day needs, what their system is asking for? So that's one of the things that we're going to look at as well, is are we here, how do we best serve the people? Is it going to be an osseous force application? Is it going to be a light touch? Is it going to be both? And so we're going to work on how to marry those two concepts and apply those seamlessly in your hands-on practice. The other thing that in this work we have found is that, how many of you feel like I have said anything bad about chiropractic so far? I am not here to bash chiropractic. I love chiropractic. I love chiropractors. I don't feel like we have done a great job as a community of chiropractors, of professionals who are dedicated to serving humanity and doing our homework. I feel like we get out there, get into practice, kind of get into a routine, and so much of what is going on in science right now absolutely supports what we do as a chiropractor, and so many chiropractors don't know that. They're still going based on the stuff that DD and BJ were talking about. Now, some of the stuff that BJ and DD were talking about is right on. I mean, it's amazing. Some of it is a little bit outdated. So that's another thing we're going to do tonight, is sort of update the concepts of chiropractic, of subluxation, what it means to assess a whole system from top to bottom, addressing the whole person. So there's two ways to be a chiropractor. There's probably, I mean, I know there's a million ways. There's a million different techniques. There's a million different approaches, and every single chiropractor has their way of touching somebody that's their very own, no matter what technique they apply. But we have the technical approach, which here we have my, what do you call it, jackhammer dude. So it tends to be procedure-based. It's often quite routine. It imposes stagnant rules upon a living system. And the chiropractor can become a technician because what they're really committed to is the technique and applying it properly, rather than what the person is showing them on the table. So you can go to a very brilliant technician. We've all seen brilliant technicians and had amazing experiences with them. I think that oftentimes those people can get a little bit bored in practice, because really once you learn the technique, you can add other stuff in, but you've got the foundation and you're really imposing on the body. You're looking, okay, what do I have? What is this leg check showing me? And then you're bringing from all of your knowledge and you're applying it onto that person. The master, and I have very graciously included myself on that, is principle-based. What we entirely base how we address the person on the table at that moment is what's going on in that person's system at that second. So the clinical reality is the most important to us. A master is constantly refining their clinical skills in alignment with the principles of chiropractic. And also in that, there has to be, by definition, a profound respect for the human body and all of its processes. So these are the chiropractors where you go to their office and people are hurling up lungs and throwing up outside, and when they come back in and go, oh my God, I just throw up, and they go, isn't that amazing? And why? Because the body's eliminating, and there's a whole physiology that matches that. Adjusting is an organic process which evolves, as does the person receiving care. So if you are a master, the work that you do is constantly evolving, as are the people. Once you're not evolving your work anymore, you're going to find that people leave your practice and go down the street because they're going to go to the person who's going to take them to the next level. People inherently and innately know when the work is serving them and when it's not serving them. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. If you have a lot of people that have stuck with you for a long time, it's a brilliant sign that what you're doing is really serving their evolution and growth. And as a chiropractor, isn't that what we want to do? We want to serve people in their growth and evolution. So the mission of biogeometric integration is to empower chiropractors with the knowledge and skill necessary to achieve the highest aspirations of chiropractic, which is to release the interference to the expression of the infinite potential of all beings. How many of you have ever been to a chiropractic practice where it didn't seem like that would actually happen? I've worked in one. It was called the Astoria Injury and Accident Chiropractic Center. And I swear to God, the chiropractor once said to me, I don't know why I get all of these car accident people coming in my office. Do you think it might have anything to do with names? I never thought of that. Really? Wow, that's incredible. Well, I think it might be a little bit related to that. So, the big idea of chiropractic, we are based in such incredible principles. And yet it is so easy in the day-to-day to forget that and become mechanists and do our thing. And then, what time is lunch? And what time do I have to fill out that paperwork? And when's my next person coming in? I believe that as chiropractors, the work that we are here to do is profound and it's incredible. And it's not easy. It's incredibly rewarding and it's incredibly challenging. Is there any way to get a little bit of air in here? I might die. Okay.
Some people look good.
Okay, so biogeometric integration, a conceptual understanding of the body, a language, even just a little bit of time. So what we are going to be doing this weekend is learning a new language. We're going to be learning the geometry of the human body. If I were speaking to you right now in Farsi, no matter how passionate and how incredibly clear my communication is, there is a good possibility that many of you would not understand what I'm saying. True. So with this work that we're doing over the weekend, it is a language. It is a way of communicating with the body and getting information with the body that is based on sacred geometry and innate intelligence. So it's not based in rules. It's based in concepts. It's based in principles. We are going to talk about the quantum understanding of the body and subluxations, incredibly important to biogeometric integration. We're going to talk about the theory of subluxation, which incorporates the body's energetic nature and the reason why systems subluxate. And again, it's not a technique because there are infinite applications and creative applications of this work. There are no two practicing BGI chiropractors whose offices look the same, the way that they approach people in their practice is the same. And that's probably true of every technique, but it's really interesting, and I'm sorry that there's not another person here teaching with me this weekend, because it's really cool to watch us work, because it's so, we apply it so differently. And there are people who tend to be very dynamic thrust-based. Luke Corletto is a Gonstead genius, and he is one of our most amazing and loved BGI teachers. Valerie Panaccio in the UK, she is a toggle wizard. And Katina Manning, have you heard these people? They're just like the most amazing chiropractors in the world. Katina will move any bone anywhere, in any position, at any time. But she applies the concepts. So, and then there's people like me. I move bones. I absolutely do. But not every visit and not every time. And not every bone. I'm willing to say I probably can't move every bone in the body. Tina can. And so the way we do it is just differently. And that it works because we're applying a set of concepts, not a set of rules. So this weekend is it's kind of a whirlwind class. We lovingly refer to it as BGI kindergarten. And so we put a lot of material, a lot of information, and there's a lot of hands-on, which makes it very experiential. We'll also take the time to make sure everybody gets checked over the 2 days so that you'll have an experience of what it feels like to get adjusted with the work. But it's a great place to start, and there's more. So we have BGI2. BGI1 is the posterior aspect of the system. BGI, I just said BGI2. BGI1, posterior. BGI2, anterior and sagittal, which is the volume between posterior and anterior. BGI3 is the coronal, which are planes of movement that come on the sides of the body. And then also some really cool weird stuff. That's BGI3. And then now there's BGI4, which is different members of the BGI staff presenting how they do things in practice and stuff that they've been working on. So the body of information and knowledge is vast. And we are just going to cover the tip of it. But we will absolutely give you enough so that you can go back to your office, to school on Monday, and feel very confident in some basic skills that we're going to learn. So what we're going to cover tonight is, first we're going to cover contemporary science and the philosophy of chiropractic. I think this is incredibly important that you understand that what you're being taught in school about chiropractic philosophy is what leading physicists are talking about all over the world. So we're not the crazy weirdos anymore. We're the ones who are actually talking about what the brilliant people are doing in science. And it's very important that we understand that, because I feel like for so long we've in some ways apologized for what we've done. We've been the sort of outlying weirdos, and so it's time to really embrace our philosophy and our science, because it's right there where it needs to be. Starting tomorrow, I will be doing very little talking, a little bit, don't worry, but not so much, and we'll be doing a tremendous amount of hands-on. So you will get experiences of, we'll do a little bit of talking, a little demo, and then hands-on. Talking, demo, hands-on. And you'll work in groups, small groups, so you get a great chance to feel what other people are feeling, to experience what it's like to be on the table and have this type of palpation, this type of work being done. We are going to learn about the classification of the subluxation. So what does that mean? We have found that subluxation, that potential energy can be stored in 3 systems of the body. It can be stored in the osseous system, it can be stored in the muscular system, and it can be stored in the soft connective tissue. So as we go to apply an appropriate adjustive force, the more information that we have about where this potential energy is being stored, the better we can serve that person with the appropriate adjustment. So my sense is that many masters in chiropractic understand this innately, they just don't know what to call it. So we'll just call you an early master. We're going to give you some vocabulary. Continuity. This may be the most important thing that we're going to do all weekend, and it's going to happen tomorrow. When the body experiences an input that it is unable to integrate, it disconnects. So what does that mean? We are constantly being inundated with information, whether it's auditory, chemical, emotional, physical, spiritual, nutritional, emotional, am I leaving it out? Physical. And our body, our brain does an incredible job of taking that information and making physiological changes based on that experience, right? There are certain pieces of information that come in, and whether they come in so many at a time that our body's not able to fully integrate all of them, or it's such a big piece of information that our body's like, whoa, I cannot handle all of that right this second. But because we are always exactly where we are the moment we're supposed to be there to learn the lessons we're supposed to learn, how will we do that? My experience is, and this work shows us, that the body holds on to that information. Why? Because it was important to us. And if it wasn't important to us, we wouldn't have had the experience. So the experience that happens, either we integrate that experience and it becomes part of who we are, it becomes part of our system, it becomes part of our tools that we gauge every single experience that we have from them forward on, or it's stored in our system for later processing. Unfortunately, in my experience, as human beings, we're not given a lot of information about how to handle our body and how to actually take care of it. I mean, you look at kids, they don't learn anything about their bodies in school. And then they grow up and they know even less than they do when they're innately tuned into their systems. What we get to do as applying these principles is help the body integrate those experiences. How many of you have put your hands on a body and there's like that area that it just feels like it's completely checked out? Like it's just, there's nothing going on in there. There's no momentum, there's nothing, there's no juiciness, there's no energy. Yes? How many of you have gone, here's one of my favorites, right around here, T5, T6, T7, and it's just so tight that if you were to go give a thoracic thrust, it's basically gonna rebound you to the next room, right? So either you're gonna push through that with all your might, and because you're amazing chiropractors, you probably can, but most likely that person's gonna come back in a couple days and it's gonna be very similar, right? So for us, those are places where there's a disconnect in the body. Either there's a disconnect where the energy is accumulating, or a disconnect where the energy is absent. So in my experience, one of the reasons why I wanted to become a chiropractor is because I was very drawn to the concept that we were holistic doctors. We were holistic practitioners. That medical doctors, God bless them, that they are working with the parts and they don't understand the whole. It is now my experience that if there is a disconnect in the system, the most elegant chiropractic adjustment delivered to that one segment without an awareness of the disconnects and how that one segment is connected to the rest of the system, we're just addressing that one system, or that one segment. Once we establish continuity in the system, we really have a completely different clinical picture of how things are connected. And in my experience, if you take nothing away from this weekend other than how to establish continuity, it will increase your results in your practice by a tremendous amount. And that can be, your results can be based on anything. It can be based on pain relief, on quality of life questionnaires, on happiness, whatever you want to base your information on results. This is incredibly important, and it is so easy, and it can take you 30 seconds. So it's a beautiful thing. This is what I want you all to take back to your practice, no matter what. And then we'll add more. Subluxation tracks. Does it make sense to you that the body is innately connected in a format that is truly connected with innate? Of course it does, right? So if Atlas is disconnected, doesn't it make sense that that distortion is going to be present through the whole system? And if we're really, really, really clean on our adjustment, when we take care of Atlas, we may clear all of the other subluxations that we're feeling in the system. We may or we may not. But just having the awareness of that connection of the whole track is so dramatically different than going in and adjusting Atlas as though it's a standalone subluxation. So in our experience, tracks have a consistent tone, a consistent quality throughout the whole distortion. So if we have a distortion at atlas, we're also going to have a matching distortion at occiput, at clavicle, at T910, T1112, and at sacrum, at the base of sacrum. We'll go through all of the geometry, but that's just to give you a sense that it goes through the entire system. We're also going to see how that track is reflected in the legs. It gives us another piece of information connected to leg checks that is completely, it validates what you're already doing in your practice if you use a leg check. And if you don't use a leg check because it's never made sense to you, it may help it make sense to you as to why it makes sense. The other thing that we found with these subluxation tracks is that they are accessible through what we call focal points. Now, people who are either incredibly gifted before they start school, become gifted in school, or have been practicing a long time and have had their hands on thousands of people, tend to swipe a body and they know right where to go. And if somebody's watching, they go, how did they know that? There's those juicy points that are just calling to you as a chiropractor. It is not that area of incredible tension at T5, 6, 7 that I was talking about, where the body's basically saying, get off me. So it's the opposite of that. It's those parts where they're just kind of juicy. As a chiropractor, they kind of make your mouth froth. They make your hands automatically go to that osseous adjustment. Those are what we call focal points. And we find those are consistent throughout the subluxation tract. So we can either apply the focal points onto the track or the track onto the focal points. It doesn't matter. We'll do both during the weekend. But just know that they're there and that they feel different from a lot of what we're taught to adjust in chiropractic colleges. It also makes your adjusting so much easier because you're going to a place where the body's already in ease rather than fighting where there's a tremendous amount of tension. In terms of our adjusting, if we have stored potential in the muscular system, the soft connective tissue system, and the osseous system, we have found that applying force that matches that potential is a much more effective way of clearing that subluxation tract than trying to either overpower it. And I'll give you an example. So if I have a soft connective tissue tract, which is going through those atlas correlates that I just talked about, so occiput, C1, clavicle laterally, T910, T1112, and base of sacrum. So we have focal points at all of those things, but we're really feeling like the stored potential is in the soft connective tissue. So I can use a soft connective tissue approach. So that would mean not an osseous adjustment. And I can match the tone of that subluxation tract. Or I can go in there with an osseous approach and possibly have to clean up a little mess afterwards. It doesn't really matter how you approach it. If you're doing what you love and the patient or person that you're serving is at ease, it's going to be okay. But having an awareness of where the stored potential is and how it's being reflected in the whole system through the whole track gives you the information on what force application is going to be the best to use. Sometimes it's going to be blocks. Sometimes it's going to be an osseous approach. Sometimes it's going to be a very light soft connective approach. Specificity. If we are aware of how that track is pulling through the whole system, the organs that its tension is enveloping, how it's going back and forth, how it's reflected anteriorly onto the system, the specificity of our approach is infinitely greater than awareness of if we only know our subluxation and atlas. So why does that matter? How many of you have people who come to your practice and they've had the same listing for 20 years? A lot of people, right? This guy always has a PI right ilium. Doesn't matter how good my adjustment is. They walk out the door, they're good for a couple days, they come back, they may even be feeling good, but I always find that PI ilium. Why? Either there's a disconnect, continuity, or our specificity isn't enough that we're actually clearing that whole track. So if we're only adjusting the PI ilium at ilium, and we're not addressing the whole rest of the track that is connected to that, it is entirely probable that when they go back to their life, that subluxation tract is going to reappear. If that doesn't bother you, well, good. If that would annoy you after 20 years of wondering why people come back, and in their growth and evolution, they still have the same pattern, then we're going to give you some really great tools to deal with that. We're also going to talk about integrating the adjustment. So great, we've applied this amazing, perfect, specific force, whether it's osseous, soft tissue, or muscular. We've done it at the focal points. We know how the exact subluxation tract is. Did it work? Did we do anything? So we're going to give you tools to figure out whether or not the adjustment was successful. And we have a set of parameters that helps us know that. Then, we're going to talk about the geometric model. So all of this is going to go into a schematic. This is incredibly helpful for people who like maps, because we're going to tell you exactly where to look. Here's what I want you to know, is that this map was created based on clinical experience and clinical reality. Not that the map was drawn and then imposed upon the people in the practice. So when Sue taught in the network community for a while, and she was doing stuff that wasn't necessarily network, and people kept saying, I want to learn what you're doing. And she said, I don't know, I'm doing my thing, which is what you guys are all going to start doing. You're just going to start doing your thing, or you're already doing your thing. And as you know, when people ask you when you're adjusting, like, what are you doing? I can't talk right now because that's another part of my brain. And see, I can't even talk and think about adjusting at the same time. That's scary. I'll be better tomorrow, I promise, while we're adjusting. So she had 2 students who said, I will follow you around, and I am going to watch everything you do, and we're just going to figure it out. And she said, I do not have time for this. But if you're interested and you want to do yes. So these guys followed her around for months, and they drew out a schematic, and then finally the geometry surfaced. And so that was amazing, because instead of being this sort of vague, this is what she does, it became this really clear map, which is incredibly useful for us. And it makes the work all make sense. So it gives us an adjusting framework. We have our correlates, which all match geometrically. We have a logic. So it's not just me spouting up here saying, yeah, this is how it is, and remember this because I made it up. There's a logic to it. So you don't have to remember anything. You just have to think, what would make sense if this is what I'm feeling, where would I go next based on the information given? And then tomorrow Sunday when we're in, we're going to talk about some of the synchronicities that we found with the geometry. So there's been some really cool stuff that has come out, much of it after the work started being taught, both spiritually and scientifically with what's going on in the world right now. That's going to be our weekend. It's a lot. And it's a lot of hands-on. So even though this is a lot of yakking right now, when we're working, there's a really nice pace of talking and then feeling, because my experience is that chiropractors are incredibly kinetic, and until you feel it, it doesn't mean much. So you will have plenty of time to feel it on each other, on yourselves, to get adjusted. And that's also really important for us, is that you have the experience of the work in your own body. Are there any questions up to this point? Everybody good? All right, so 33 principles of chiropractic. Elodie, are those clear? Can you read them all? Good, excellent. So the clarity with which things are being projected right now is no, do not fix it. This is on purpose. I don't want things to be clear. I want them to be muddy. Because for me, in chiropractic school, The 33 principles were this clear. I didn't get them, and I didn't want to get them because they didn't mean anything to me, because I had some serious issues with some of them. So much so that I just thought, I want to be a chiropractor, I want to help people, and so I'll just leave all this stuff out. Until I met Sue Brown, I did not care about philosophy. Something horrible is going to happen. I did not really care about chiropractic philosophy. I thought it was a lot of jargon, and yeah, I'm going to stop there. So, they now make a little more sense to me, but in a completely different, revitalized format where we actually make them sound feasible, plausible, and have some scientific validity. Now, I am not saying that science has to be part of philosophy, but what is amazing is that science is an incredible part of our philosophy. And so that's where we're going to start going. The universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to it all of its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. The major premise of that one I got, and that one is very clear to me. There is something out there that is designing everything around me to perfection. I get that. I completely get that. And the more we start looking around at nature, the more obvious it becomes. And basically, physicists' job is to look at nature and explain physical phenomena. And so, John Hagelin, who's an American physicist, says, philosophers and psychologists have had great difficulty understanding how inert, dead matter can lead to living consciousness. But that's not how it happens. In our quantum view of the universe, consciousness is ubiquitous. Intelligence is everywhere. And the deeper you go beneath the surface, the more intelligence, the more dynamism, the more awareness, until at the foundation of the universe, there is a field of pure, abstract, universal existence. Pure, abstract, universal intelligence. Universal consciousness. This field is the source of all existence and all order that sustains the vast, ever-expanding universe. Anybody get goosebumps? These are physicists talking about chiropractic philosophy, getting paid a lot of money by governments to figure out how the world works. And this is what bj and Didi said 125 years ago. That's beautiful to me. Science is catching up to us. And so it's our job to be ready for what they're going to start blending. How many of you love math? Brilliant, brilliant, excellent.
Some math.
Some math, yes, okay, awesome. I am in the don't love math category, or was in the don't love math category. It was not very engaging to me, it felt very dry, and nobody ever explained to me that math is not 1 + 1 is 3, or 8 × 7 is 56. Math is finding patterns in the universe and explaining them, and finding an eloquent solution to complex problems. That is exciting. This is from a book called The Man Who Loved Numbers. The mathematician's patterns, like the painters or the poets, must be beautiful. The ideas, like the colors of the words, must fit together in a harmonious way. Beauty is the first test. There is no permanent place in the world for ugly mathematics. It may be very hard to define mathematical beauty, but that's just as true as beauty of any kind. We may not know quite what we mean by a beautiful poem, but that doesn't prevent us from recognizing one when we read it. And I will add that we may not know what an ugly adjustment is, but we know when we receive it. And you don't want to go back, and it hurts. And there's an intention that's missing. There's an imposition onto that person's system. There's something you guys have out on your door here that says, I'm a chiropractor because I want to assist, not to, I think it's here.
Yeah. Then,
I want to assist more than inter.
Okay, intervene. So as a chiropractor, I want to assist. I don't want to intervene. I don't need to impose me onto you. You come to me as a perfect being. If I believe in innate intelligence, we're going to get to this really intensely in a few minutes. I think you're perfect, right? So I'm there to serve. Mathematics is there. It's beautiful. It's this jewel we uncover. That math could be a jewel might come as a surprise to those who struggled with multiplication tables as kids, and to those who need help completing income tax forms. Mathematics is a misunderstood and even maligned discipline. It's not the brute computation that was drilled into us in grade school. It is not a science of everything. And this is a picture of the Mandelbrot set and fractals. And this is new math. This is like beauty in action. So here we have Isaac Newton. The description of right lines and circles upon which geometry is founded belongs to mechanics. Geometry does not teach us to draw these lines, but requires them to be drawn. So where we have this image of geometry as being measuring lines and stuff, it's actually not that. It's the study of what requires the lines to be drawn. The other thing that I want to point out is that Newton has an incredible purpose in the history of science. But Newton was replaced by Einstein, right? So mechanical physics was generally replaced by quantum physics. Most human sciences are based on Newtonian physics. They are not based on quantum physics. Only when we look at the living system as an infinite amount of potential and options are we able to truly see the human being in a quantum system. So when a doctor prescribes a pill A to a patient, there's little awareness, in my experience, of how that drug is going to interact with every other part of the system. Yes? And so it's a very linear approach. You're going to take this drug and the result is going to be this. And there's not a big discussion about all of the other things that may happen. It's a very linear approach, and it's very much a Newtonian physics approach. This is why chemistry and biology, in so many ways in terms of medicine, they're not meeting the needs of the population because it's based on old science. It's not based on current science. So Galileo said that mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. And we're going to talk about all of those little pictures. So if you start looking at the patterns that are in nature, there's some patterns that start to show up on a quite frequent basis. One of them is the triangle, another is the pentagon, and the spiral. So the golden mean in philosophy is defined as the felicitous middle, the happy middle between the extremes of excess and deficiency. How many of you deal with stuff like that in your practice? You look at people as an extreme or a deficiency. I think a lot of chiropractors do. Too much or too little. Certainly in Chinese medicine, no qi, too much he, too little. So it tends to be quite a vitalistic approach. The golden mean in Judaism is a philosophy pertaining to body and soul in Jewish belief. And the golden ratio is a specific mathematical ratio, which is sometimes called the golden mean. The golden ratio is a special number found by dividing a line into two parts, such that the longest part divided by the smaller part is also equal to the whole length divided by the longer part. So that's why it's a ratio. This number is known as phi. It's a repeating number. Like pi, it has no end. And it's 1.61803, blah, blah, blah. So in nature, this ratio is found in almost all living things. It's also found tremendously frequently in architecture. I'm pretty sure that if we go out there and measure, if anybody wants to do that at Saint-Sulpice, that the golden ratio is very present. Notre Dame is all golden mean ratios. I'm a little bit concerned that my video hasn't come up. Yeah, I've got good hands. Don't move. Okay. No. What did you do? I'm surprised. Okay. I forgot to ask. Do you have speakers? It may not be necessary.
Everybody shut up.
You see the light.
Maybe I'm not phone.
Where do you see that?
Mm.
Okay, and I can go, if you want to go onto the stick behind this. Sorry. It worked.
They did that last week.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Videos. No, not that one. That's it. All right, go to wow.
Can I have the speaker? C'est pas terminé pour les embrasser. Fais-nous un petit bisou. Je suis désolé pour les soucis techniques, c'est ma faute.
Are there any questions? Anybody else? Are French people afraid of air, like the Italians? like a draft? Does this cause bad things amongst civilizations among them? No. That's nice. We're perhaps there.
It's the idea of the geometrical with a spiral.
That's what we're doing. That's perfect that you didn't get it, because we haven't done it. And
Because
this?
you told the triangle,
Yeah.
the other one and the spiral.
So I have two videos because I find that these are really good as His office is dead.
Creating a golden rectangle, which the Greeks admired for its beautiful proportions and magic qualities. It was our old friend Pythagoras who discovered that the pentagram was full of magic. It was our old friend Pythagoras who discovered that the pentagram was full of magic. The two shorter lines combined exactly equal the third, and this line shows the magic proportions of the famous golden section. The second and third lines exactly equal the fourth. Once again, we have the golden section. But this is only the beginning. Hidden within the pentagram is a secret for creating a golden rectangle, which the Greeks admired for its beautiful proportions and magic qualities. The star contains the golden rectangle many times over. It's a most remarkable shape. It can mathematically reproduce itself indefinitely. All these rectangles have exactly the same proportions.
After you get the spiral.
This figure also contains a magic spiral that repeats the proportions of the golden section into infinity. To the Greeks, the golden rectangle represented a mathematical law of beauty. We find it in their classical architecture. The Parthenon, perhaps one of the most famous of early Greek buildings, contains many golden rectangles. These same golden proportions are also found in their sculpture. In the centuries that followed, the golden rectangle dominated the idea of beauty and architecture throughout the Western world. The Cathedral of Notre Dame is an outstanding example. The Renaissance painters knew this secret well. Today, the golden rectangle is very much a part of our modern world. Modern painters have rediscovered the magic of these proportions. Indeed, this ideal proportion is to be found in life itself. This was mathematics. I like mathematical figures like that. Donald. That was reality. No. Ideal proportion. Not quite. No, I'm afraid not. Well, we can't all be mathematically perfect. Oh, yeah? I do want to do it. Now that you're all pent up in a pentagon, let's see how nature uses this same mathematical form. The petunia. The star jasmine. The starfish. The wax flower. There are literally thousands of members in good standing in nature's Pythagorean Society of the Stars. All nature's works have a mathematical logic, and her patterns are limitless. The magic proportions of the golden section are often found in the spirals of nature's designs. The profusion of mathematical forms brings to mind the words of Pythagoras. Everything is arranged according to number and mathematical shape. Yes, there is mathematics in music, in art, in just about everything. And as the Greeks had guessed, it was our old friend.
A mathematician, he excelled in many areas, and one in particular. He generated a long list of numbers by, in each case, adding together the two previous numbers. You can begin with a 2 and a 3. You add them together and you get 5. Now add 3 and 5 to get 8. Then add 5 and 8 to get 13. The Fibonacci sequence keeps going like this: 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, and so on. What Fibonacci realized was that this elegant list of numbers describes many items to be found in nature. For example, flower petals.
L'exemple des pétales d'une marguerite. Il n'y a pas de hasard au nombre de pétales d'une marguerite.
Non, absolument. Le nombre de pétales de marguerite est en fait inscrit dans un scénario qu'on pourrait qualifier de scénario cosmologique, c'est-à-dire que tout a été prévu au départ, et que le nombre de pétales, c'est une seule marguerite avec 27 pétales, ça n'existe pas.
Il n'y a pas de pétales, il n'y a pas
de marguerite avec 27, c'est pas possible. C'est pas possible. Et le nombre de pétales de marguerite est réglé par une loi mathématique qu'on appelle la suite de Fibonacci.
But there is a mathematically precise structure to the universe and everything in it. One everyday example of this precision can be found in the plants. Many plants, including elm trees, grow their leaves twigs and branches placed exactly halfway around the stem from each other. Next in the series are plants like the beech tree, with leaves placed 1/3 of the way around the stem from the previous leaves. Third in the series are the plants like the oak, with leaves placed at every 2/5 of a turn. The holly plant is the next at 3/8, while the larch trees are the next at 5/13, and the sequence goes on and on. Notice the number sequence of these fractions: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Each number is the sum of the two numbers which came just before it in the sequence. This particular mathematical pattern is called the Fibonacci series.
Take, for example, the sunflower. The display of its florets are in perfect spirals of 55, 34, and 21. The sequence of Fibonacci. The sequence of Fibonacci. The fruitlets of the pineapple create the same spiral based on the sequence. The pine cone does the same. As currents move through the ocean and the tide rolls onto the shore, the waves that bring in the tide curve into a spiral that can be mathematically diagrammed onto a plot at the points 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and 55. Buds on trees, sand dollars, starfish, petals on flowers are formed with this exact same blueprint. This blueprint can be seen around us on a small scale every day, but the greatest example of all is directly above our heads. At an average of 100,000 light years across, even the spiral of the galaxies above us are formed with the exact design, This sequence or blueprint appears to be the trademark of a designer, a proof of a creator, also known as the golden mean.
Do you guys want more, or do you feel like that's all pretty clear? The golden mean and the Fibonacci series. It seems like most of you are familiar with it. Okay. Great. So, in mapping out the skeletal structures of horses, they found a repeating theme of the golden mean when they measured out the width of the head versus the cervical vertebra versus the body and the tail. And this is the arc of the ratios. And then, it just so happens that when you do the same to a vertebra, whether it's a cervical, thoracic, or lumbar, they create the same pattern. Same with fish, no matter what they look like. Beetles. It's everywhere. Life is a triunity, having three necessary united factors: intelligence, force, and matter. I'm going to get back to it. Max Planck. He accepted the Nobel Prize and said, "Hey everybody, I know you think that matter is one way. There is actually no matter as such. All matter originates by virtue of a force. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." This was Einstein's buddies, and they're talking about that topic. They just don't know it. Another physicist, force, not substance, is the true being of the world. It reaches from one end of the universe to the other. Points of matter, atoms, were only the star-like intersections of myriads of radiant lines of force that spread out from these centers to weave their way through the universe. So from the small to the large. And Didi said, tone is the source or origin of all life, normal or abnormal, animal or vegetable. Tone is the element, the source of all life. Its quality determines the character of life. Upon the comprehension of tone, I built the grandest science of this or any age. Tone is a law which can be comprehended. It is a principle upon which others are founded. It is an elementary proposition, a foundation principle which characterizes the chiropractic sciences. It gives to it essential properties. What we perceive as various qualities of matter are actually differences in periodicity. So, force, matter and energy are no longer separate. Matter is simply a different periodicity of energy. So if I'm putting my hand through, if I'm not putting my hand through this, because these atoms are tightly woven, their structure is this. But it doesn't mean that up here there is no matter. They're just different periodicity. We'll talk a lot about tone this weekend. I'm just going through this because I changed a bunch of the slides and made them better, so I don't want to go through all of them. So this, talking about frequency and tone, this is a type of cement that was exposed to a certain frequency. Okay, so it was a fairly low frequency, and it actually changed structure into this. They used a high electron microscope to photograph it. And as the frequency was increased, the structure changed. This is cement. It's not the same cement as down there, but it's a kind of cement. So then they changed the tone again. And it looks like a pineapple. And you see the complexity, the geometry of it. Indeed, matter itself is only the energetic geometry of forces in empty space. I'm wondering where. Sorry, you guys. Where's my other video? All right, well, here's some really cool spirals for you. So this is a cactus. Here's the sunflower. Here's some little sea creatures. This is my favorite. Help. Sorry. So in the bowel, I think where we found the Donald. Yep. So this is a video called Cymatics. This was done by a German scientist named Hans Jenny, and he took, I can't remember how much detail he goes in this about his process, but he took a type of crystal salt and put it on a flat surface, and then he put a tone through it, which you will hear the tone. And then you can see the way the shapes and the form changes as the frequency changes.
We can also use different shapes of plate. Here we have a triangular plate with a crystal attached to the underside and produce a tolerance that we change to a higher note and see a rather more complicated figure. This more elaborate figure, likewise on a steel plate, is also produced by vibration. The piping crystal is attached to the upper corner of the plate. We use sand and microsodium. Microsodium moves to the center of the field and picks up circular shapes. The sand forms the line. Each material has its own special way of behaving. Microsodium alone, the follows figure, transition to a mobile flowing phase.
Now it's transitioning to a mobile flowing phase because of the tone, not because the form changes. So the shape completely changes based on the input of the
The follow
tone.
figures represent stationary waves. Now we can also observe moving waves. Here, the sand is flowing in a current. When the wavelengths are short, these currents produce a rotary effect. Areas become defined in which the particles are actually rotating.
Now, when you see pictures of the cosmos, don't they look a lot like that?
Mm.
So talking about the huge and then the most tiny and the intricate.
Now we produce two notes with frequencies which are so related as to form a beat. The note seems to throb, and by using the method we have chosen, this phenomenon of beat or interference can be rendered visible. The figure sways to and fro, the figure pulsates.
So we talk a lot about matching the tone, and when you see these, you get a really good visual sense of how important it is, the tone with which we touch people, because we are going to affect their system the same amount that those shapes changed based on the frequency and the tone. Okay, so I hit it 3 times. Okay. Principle 24, the limits of adaptation. Innate intelligence adapts forces and matter for the body as long as it can do so without breaking the universal law, or innate intelligence is limited by the limitations of matter. Principle 29, interference with transmission of innate forces. There can be interference with the transmission of innate forces. I feel like these are a little outdated. What we know now about the way the body works is really so much, it's just more advanced. I mean, we have so much science and so much understanding. These are true, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them, and there's so much more that we know. They always come back to the subluxation, which is beautiful, the circular nature of it. The interference with transmission in the body is always directly or indirectly due to subluxations in the spinal column. What we're going to do this weekend is we're going to take that out on a macro level as well. It's not just the spinal column. It's not just the vertebra. It's the entire system. And as you saw how tone can affect vibration and affect shape and actual physical matter, we will be understanding how the subluxation will change a system. In 1931, I love this. I love this. In 1931, B.J. Connell, when he was speaking at Lyceum, said the majority of chiropractors work with the concept that they, the chiropractor, are the all-important feature of adjusting subluxations. And it is with this thought they proceed to push vertebra into the position they think they, the chiropractor, think they, the vertebra, need to be pushed into. Adjusting in their minds means pushing bones into adjusted positions. I never had such a concept. Vertebral subluxation is a symptom of the interference of innate and not a cause. The reason why I love this quotation is because I feel like we are so attached to the concept of adjusting bones and moving bones, and yet it's really about the entire system, and it's also about not pushing bones to where we, the chiropractor, think that they should go. I'm hoping the next slide is what I. Okay, so when I was in chiropractic school, what didn't resonate with me about chiropractic philosophy is the fact that we believe in universal intelligence. So we believe that everything is being conducted for a reason. And yet, for some reason, universal intelligence was sleeping on the day the subluxations were born. How do we explain this as chiropractors? Universal intelligence is perfect, except for that one pesky little thing, which is the subluxation, which puts all of chiropractic into existence. It never made sense to me. So for me, I just took subluxation out of the equation, and I served people. And I served people through the chiropractic adjustment. When I met Sue, and she talked about her philosophy of subluxation, suddenly everything made sense to me, and it made me able to have a step back from itself and evolve. So when it really process input. Alterations include, but are not limited to, a minimal change in our environment is actually measured, and a change is produced in our physiology in relation to that change in the field that may never be able to be measured by actual physiological basis. But it's so subtle and it's so fast. So the change in the field happens before, or because of the change in the field, our body responds, the body changes, and then the field adapts. It's pretty amazing. Oh, Sebastian! Why is it working? I want,
Pour moi, c'était la fréquence de la fréquence.
Mais c'est de la fréquence. C'est pour ce point-là, dans ce point-là, c'est pas le même fréquence.